Our board and our superintendent and our administrators are focused on the fact that they want classrooms to be safe, effective learning environments. And if you come in and you disrupt that environment, there are consequences.
Welcome to our third segment on challenges facing Marion County Schools, here on Marion Voices, a production of Marion Forum Group. I'm Tom Tull, the host, with
Susie Kuhn.
I'm so old that I have these blanks. So.
It's okay.
And we're here with the director of Marion County Schools, PR director, I should say, Marion County Schools, Kevin Christian. I really appreciate the time for you to come in and,
it's a pleasure.
and help us understand Marion County Schools better.
Certainly.
In this episode, we'd like to explore some initiatives public schools might take to help on these challenges of attendance and school performance and teacher acquisition, I guess you'd call it, teacher recruitment.
There you go.
So what kinds of initiatives, kind of overall, or how does the board look at creating initiatives or
A lot of times it's actually the schools that create the initiatives depending on what the situation is. You mentioned student attendance. I know some schools have worked with families who are challenged with getting their students up on time. Maybe the parents work an overnight shift somewhere. Some schools have gotten really creative and they do an automatic phone call at 6:30 in the morning or whatever.
A wake-up call.
A wake-up call, if you will. And, that's something that's easy enough for our schools to do. And perhaps you're on the list and you don't want to be on the list anymore. Then you come to school X number of days on time, and then we take your name off that list. So
that's awesome.
That's a simple, creative tool that schools can use for those kind of situations. Perhaps at the high school level, it's involving a student who is taking care of a parent who is sick at home, or perhaps doesn't have reliable transportation. And we can work with them to help resolve some of those issues. May not be able to do it in every case, but in many cases, our schools find that they're able to work with parents or families to improve the situation. I know we have an elementary school whose some of the parents were embarrassed to send their kids to school because they didn't have laundry detergent to wash clothes at home. Well, not only did the school secure laundry detergent from community donors, there was a business who donated a washer and a dryer to the school to allow those parents, if they didn't have the resources at home, to come into the school to do their laundry. So, that's an opportunity where everybody's working together. You have the school working with the family, you have the community working with the school, and it all just comes together to improve that situation.
And creatively.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And without expense to anybody.
And it doesn't show up on the school
That's not part of the report card.
That's not part of the school grade, usually.
It should be.
And there are dozens of those kinds of examples that our schools work with and come up with to help students get to school on time. Some of the best meals our students eat are at school. And for many of the kids, those are the only meals they eat. And so we're happy to fill backpacks with food and send it home with those families on the weekend. We have community partners who sponsor those programs, who buy the backpacks that our cafeteria staff will put PB&J sandwiches into or whatever for the weekend.
Yeah.
The kids bring those backpacks back on Monday. And, if we lived in a perfect world, everybody would be at school on time, ready to learn, and they'd all make A's.
Right.
We just we're not there.
No.
Yeah.
So our schools and our administrators, our teachers, even our students. The students are very creative too.
They are.
You get an ROTC group, you issue them a challenge, and they'll collect 14,000 pounds of food at Thanksgiving and deliver it to Interfaith. I mean, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
So there's a myriad of challenges but there's a myriad of opportunities and answers and solutions too. And the community makes it happen, being involved in the schools, being supportive of those kinds of efforts instead of, as you mentioned earlier, airing it on social media where it doesn't do anything but just stir up trouble.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah. And the schools are, as you said before, if they see a problem, sometimes they have to report it if it's a abuse problem
Sure.
or something. But they also, if they see a problem, they can contact other agencies that might help.
There's lots of, the Marion County Children's Alliance comes to mind. The executive director there is a former school board member. So, there's a lot of agencies here locally that we work with and who work with us to solve challenges when they come up.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents forget that school systems often become a social service in the community for lots of different
We do
things.
far more than simply educate students.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Well, it gets back to we have to educate the whole student and deal with the whole student,
We do.
not just one aspect.
We do. You're correct.
An issue that's kind of been made public. There's been reports that, between August and December, 119 students were expelled. They were saying that approximately a student a day is being expelled within our district. Although I know our district is massive.
So let me turn that on you.
Okay.
So do you not want those students expelled? Do you want those students who are causing disruptions to remain in the classroom? Do you want those students who are bringing things to campus that they shouldn't bring to campus left in the classroom?
No.
Okay. Then that's the stance we take.
Yeah.
And if the number is 116, the number is 116. If the number is 185, the number is 185. Our board and our superintendent and our administrators are focused on the fact that they want classrooms to be safe, effective learning environments. And if you come in and you disrupt that environment, there are consequences. Sometimes those consequences are more severe than other times,
Yeah.
but that's the stance they've taken.
Is there learning outside the school environment for those kids who are expelled, or is there a
There is.
detention hall or alternative
There is.
school
There
program?
are levels of discipline depending on what the student is accused of doing.
Okay.
It can be in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. It could be alternatively placed to another campus. It could be expelled off campus with online virtual learning options. Very seldom, if ever, and I have to think long and hard to even remember that the school board expelled a student without services, period. I won't say that it hasn't happened,
But that's rare.
That's
It's
extremely
extremely
rare. And usually those students are incarcerated and they are served either by teachers who work for the school system or teachers who are part of the
Corrections.
The corrections facility.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So it's just the standard of, it's not a reflection of student behavior. Is it getting worse?
I used to do I used to look at the data, and I would take the number of students that we had divided by the number of, I won't say referrals, but serious referrals that usually resulted in either an alternative placement. Or an expulsion.
Okay.
And inevitably, every single time, it was less than 0.5%. So
Good.
And most of those are going to be either extreme violence or, I don't know, maybe drugs.
extreme cases, absolutely. Drugs with intent to sell or distribute.
Yeah.
Now, again, do you want those students on campus with your student?
With my child, no.
Consciously bringing
Drugs to distribute
illegal
or sell.
items to campus with the intent to sell or distribute.
No.
Okay.
Just to follow up, in a recent interview with the head of the Marion County Education Association, we were advised that school teachers and personnel are instructed not to intervene during physical altercations and brawls, basically. As a parent, there's a concern that I want a teacher to save my child if it was, if my child was being beat up. But what is the actual policy, and why would the district have that?
I think I would respond in two different ways. First of all, we have school resource officers on every campus whose part of their job is to keep that campus safe. So if there's a disruption that is endangering students, then that SRO needs to be called immediately to that part of the campus to help deal with that. The other answer I would offer is that we urge administrators and teachers not to physically get between students, because that's when they get injured.
And that has happened.
And I won't say that that's always the best option. Okay.
Yes.
Again, we're looking for a perfect solution in an imperfect world. But, if you have high schoolers who are large and having a very visible difference of opinion, and they're engaged in fighting, and you put a teacher in between them, somebody's going to throw a punch that lands in the wrong spot. And that has happened this school year to a principal who didn't get between them, but was kind of
on the periphery,
drug in and became part of it. So I think that's part of the explanation as well. I think we will always have teachers and administrators who want to help students get on the right path. And I'm not going to say they're not allowed to separate students. Because if you have elementary students who are fighting, and yes, elementary students fight, it's easier to separate those in that kind of a situation. When you get to the middle and high school levels, those students are physically larger and can pose more of a threat to you, whether there's a real threat or a perceived threat. And so I think that's
so they're leaving it to the trained personnel on campus.
I don't know how to fight a fire other than with a garden hose. Okay, so if my house catches on fire, I'm calling 911. I mean, I'm going to put the garden hose on it, but
beyond that,
the firefighters are the experts. And, the doctors and nurses are the medical experts. So we go to them when we need their services. So I think we have to use the same kind of mental thought process when students get into physical altercations with each other and require some kind of separation.
Well, and two, I know the best defense is preparation and being
good
aware
offense.
Of
Let's just say it, a good offense. Students know when they get into trouble, there are consequences for that.
But also it's about prevention too. I mean, teachers are, I assume part of their duty is between classes, they maybe should be standing
They're
in
monitoring the
hallway.
hallway. Absolutely. Oh, yes.
Listening to those conversations about meet me out.
And when I was a principal, one of the biggest gripes I had was, I had teachers that are out in the hallways, but then they would kind of get together and start talking and not paying attention to why they were out in the hallway. Now, that doesn't happen often, but, you want teachers actively supervising kids or monitoring kids and not just physically there and doing something else.
And students talk. So if they're planning something, they usually tell each other.
That's right.
And at some point, I'm sure when you were a principal, you heard things. So I always say students are the best eyes and ears we have on every campus, and they are.
They are.
Because they know what's happening. They know what's going on. So,
it probably doesn't happen very often in Marion County Schools, but I do know that sometimes inexperienced teachers will paint themselves into a corner that then ends badly for the students.
With good intentions.
Yes, with good intentions, but it ends badly for the students. And I know a lot of times when I was a teacher, I found that instead of disciplining a student and saying, okay, you have to do this or you have to do that, if I gave them a choice and they chose, then they couldn't complain about what they chose. Now, my choices I gave them might be kind of rhetorical. Well, you can either sit down and do this work or you can go to the principal's office.
Right.
So obvious what I wanted them to do. And a lot of, I will say that probably 80% of the time, the student would then cooperate. So, and again, it depends on the student and stuff, but I think sometimes if school staff, are monitoring and are using good judgment in how they handle situations, they can prevent.
Well, we also teach our students to respect each other. That starts in kindergarten or pre-K, in many of our campuses. And we promoting a healthy and safe learning environment, we all take ownership of that. It doesn't just belong to the teacher or to the principal. Yeah. It's on everybody, including all of us who were outside the confines of the classroom and off campus. It's part of our responsibility. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And we've sort of talked about this, but keeping kids engaged in the classroom is also part of good environment and things. And I assume in the professional development for teachers, if I'm certified to teach math, but I've never really had education classes, some of that training that they get might be on how to manage a classroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we also have people at the district level whose job it is to write curriculum maps and lesson plans so that those people who are entering the classroom for the first time don't start from scratch. I mean, they're starting a new career or a new profession, but they don't start with an empty toolbox.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's all kinds of resources out there. Collaborative teaching, I've used that term several times today, or collaborative planning, or attending those classroom management, behavior management, whatever the professional training opportunity is called. They're all available.
Good.
For teachers to participate in and take advantage of, as they are for administrators as well.
And I had another thought, but it just completely left my mind.
You have another one of those moments.
I was going another one of those things.
Cell phone use in schools. How is the district and how are schools handling all these kids with devices? I guess that's a question. I have a son who's in high school, and I don't even know how you guys keep him from his phone because I can't.
I don't think it's realistic in this day and age, at least in Florida.
Yeah.
To expect a student not to have a cell phone at all during the day or a mobile device. I mean, we issue Chromebooks.
Yeah.
You can do a lot on a Chromebook.
You can do the same thing. Yeah.
So I think what it is it's convincing the student that if you have your teacher's permission in your classroom, you can use your cell phone for appropriate purposes.
It's a great tool.
It is, but it's not appropriate to be on social media.
Yes, during the school day.
Talking with your friends and your buddies when your teacher's in the front of the classroom trying to teach what you're supposed to be learning. Then it's a distraction, not just to you, but to other people in the class, because it's not just, you're not talking to yourself.
Yes.
You're talking to your friends.
Yes.
And so even if it's on another campus, that's where I think the community can help us and parents can help us to help students understand the value of being in the classroom and it truly being a classroom learning environment, not a classroom distracted environment.
Yes, and it's no different for adults in the workforce.
Absolutely.
It's a problem. It's a problem for everyone.
You remember earlier I said whatever society is dealing with, we deal with at school. It's the same thing.
It is.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So
I remembered what I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
I found it helpful as an administrator to track offenses of students. Okay, and so does the school system have the ability to have data on what offenses are the most common, which schools have what kinds of offenses?
Yes.
So that, each school is different. So, some schools may have different kinds of offenses than others. And then which teachers seem to have more offenses that they, what do you call
more
it?
Referral.
Than other teachers. Is there a system in the schools?
Absolutely. Not only is there a system that we use, but there's a system that's required by the state of Florida called the SESIR report, SESIR. And At this moment, I can't tell you what that stands for, but at one point I knew it. But it's a state-required report, and it's public. So you can go on DOE's website, and you can see the number of certain instances of these things happening on any school campus in the last school year. Now, it may not be current for this school year, but it's probably current for last year. That is a state-required report. But we also have the ability to track individual students and their cumulative offenses, if you will. In other words, we know if this is their first offense, their second offense, their third offense. All of this is spelled out in the Code of Student Conduct, and I would anticipate that you know what that document is.
Yes.
But there are many parents and many families who don't know what that document is, and that is the Bible for student behavior in Marion County Public Schools. It is what we as a school district, as a community, expect from students. And when you break one of the rules are listed, and when you break one of them, the penalties associated with it are also
there.
listed.
Yes.
And I think as I
a
looked at the
contract.
website,
It is.
as I looked at the website, I think that was on the website.
Yes,
that
sir,
they
it is.
You can,
In English and in Spanish.
yeah.
Yes.
And most teachers make you, as the parent and the student, sign that.
It
and
is.
return it.
It is a common document. It is more common at sometimes than other times, and
Yes.
it's more common for some students than other students. But it is the Bible of behavior for when it comes to attending any of our classrooms. So, and we have a code of civility too for parents
Right.
and people who come to our public meetings, that we will behave professionally and not personally attack people. And unfortunately,
I've
sometimes
been to a couple school board meetings where,
the adults can challenge the students on the behavior spectrum. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do principals and area superintendents, do they look at those, the data from that and then talk with their
Oh, absolutely.
principal or
The
teachers
principals
about
know
what we
exactly
need
what
to
what all of those numbers are, and the area superintendents and the school board itself gets involved in that too, because you want schools to report their instances or their situations accordingly, but you don't. If you have an anomaly and one school is really spiking, then why is that school spiking? Is it because there's truly that many incidents on that campus, or are other schools not reporting it? And if so, why not? It's not always black and white.
Right. Right.
So there's,
dialogue about it. Yeah.
and again, the standards of behavior are pretty equal when it comes to campus to campus to campus. But at the same time, I may have a stricter principal who is
Zero tolerance.
zero tolerance for this. And so that category of infraction is higher than the other high schools.
Yep.
You know,
That makes sense.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot today.
have covered a lot.
We have covered the barnyard, as I say.
Yes.
So,
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come and share a perspective of our school district, and I hope that you guys learned something. I hope your listeners and your viewers do as well. We're always here and happy to answer questions. Our number 671-7700 is the switchboard, and MarionSchools.net is our website. So we're always here to help.
Well, we appreciate
and
you.
I know Marion County Schools is also interested in partnering with businesses or
Absolutely.
employers or whatever to
We have 3 new schools opening. We need 3 new business partners.
Yeah. This has been the Marion Forum Group and Marion Voices, and we've been talking to Kevin Christian, who's the director of public relations for Marion County Schools, and we've talked about a lot of different challenges and how Marion County Schools are trying to address them, and we hope it's been informative for you. If you have any questions about what we've talked about, you can always talk to your principal at your school or Kevin, I'm sure. And you can send us any questions or anything that you would like us to address here on Marion Voices. So until then, thank you for listening. Be a good neighbor, and thank you. Very good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It was very informative.
It really was.